Uh, I know it, and I use the word fellowshipism. It's a good thing, but sometimes you gotta cut it off sometimes and keep going. Thank y'all for being here this morning. I know you weren't expecting to see me, but Nan is real sick, very, very sick, and Bob is taking care of Nan, so he called and asked if I'd teach this morning, and I said, yes, sir, be happy to. And then he told me the topic is Revelation, and that made me, that little chill come down your back. I'm not an expert on Revelation, but I see Tommy Isabel's here and some others, so I think we'll be in good hands. Is that right, Tommy? No? Seriously, Bob called me yesterday afternoon, and so I got to look at the material some. I'm not an expert on Revelation, but I think there's some takeaways that we can take from what we're going to read. If you want to turn over into chapter 21 of Revelation, that's where we're going to be, and it's talking about a new Jerusalem. So I think let's take just a few minutes and let me read here in Revelation chapter 21. It'll kind of set the stage. This is John speaking, and he says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away.' He who was seated on the throne said, 'I am making everything new.' Then he said, 'Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true.' He said to me, 'It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. The new Jerusalem, which is the bride of the Lamb. One of the seven angels who had the seven bowls full of the seven last plagues came and said to me, 'Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb.' And he carried me away in the Spirit to a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and with 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. The wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. The angel who talked with me had a measuring rod of gold to measure the city, its gates and its walls. The city was laid out like a square, as long as it was wide. He measured the city with the rod and found it to be 12,000 stadia in length, and as wide and high as it is long. The angel measured the wall using human measurement, and it was 144 cubics thick. The wall was made of jasper, and the city of pure gold, as pure as glass. The foundations of the city walls were decorated with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth ruby, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th turquoise, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. The great street of the city was of gold, as pure as transparent glass. I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and honor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Thank you for bearing with me while I read those verses there. I couldn't help but think, I was raised in the church, and growing up, people always talked about heaven. And John here is using imagery in his talk. Do y'all have in your mind what heaven might look like? I read a bunch of words there. They use, gold and glass and all kinds of things. It's hard for me to comprehend and get my arms around. The things, those sound like songs. Yes, sir. What does it look like? Augusta National, I agree. The only other one would be, Field of Dreams? When that guy's dad walks out of the cornfield, he said, this must be heaven. But thank you, that's a great one. Since you brought that up, let me ask y'all, we'll get into this more. Can you think of anything as you've gone around in your travels that, God created something or something man-made that took your breath away? Something that just absolutely took your breath away. Sir? Oh. Well, okay. Okay. Right. Yeah. What did Justin used to say? He'd give you bonus points when you answered the question. I think you get 1,000 for answering that with Glenda. Well, and that's that's what I like. And I'm sure all of us feel that same way about our spouses, right, guys? This is our chance to catch up. But, and then I asked this to a friend of mine, and he said, a newborn baby, it'll take your breath away. And I said, yeah. Well, babies and wives and all, that's kind of an emotional deal. But right now, I'm just trying to think about something physical. I asked my wife. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been to New York. What's the name of that place, Sherry Lee? Oh, well, it was one. They're all the same up there in the north. Washington, D.C., the National Cathedral. Has anybody ever seen that? Janice is shaking. Did it take your breath away? Why? Why did it take your breath away? Yeah. Yeah, like how can man come up or do something this fantastic? Yeah, it's a good point. But back to growing up in the church, we sing all the songs about heaven and the streets of gold and all this, and you think about it, but it's hard for me to understand exactly what it's going to be like. What we do know is it's going to be great. What jasper is? It's a stone. Hey, I anticipated that. That's the only question I think I anticipated that I'm ready for this morning. And I'm not much. I'm telling them, I don't buy a lot of jewelry. You could sell me a diamond, and I wouldn't know if it was worth $10 or $10,000. But for some reason, women like jewelry, and I guess that's something that we've got to deal with, or I've tried to. But there's lots of gems. You ever heard of tanzanite? That's supposed to be the most sought after. Royal demantoid, blue garnet, tafite, black opal, benitoite, emeralds. They're way down on the list. But I had that, so if anybody wants that, you can come see what's going on. Darby, do you know about gems? Did y'all hear Miss Trout? She said that we sing songs about how beautiful heaven must be. But your point is that we don't really know. Yes, ma'am. With a positive hope. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Big, huge. Right? Yeah, the gates were pearl. We think about isn't a pearl about as big as the end of my finger or something? And here's one big enough. It's a gate with unbelievable. Yeah. But I guess it's beautiful, beyond our comprehension, really. And let's see. Let me see if I can get going here a little bit.
There's a band in heaven.
Excuse me?
There's a band there. That song says, "No tears in heaven, no sorrows given, all glory in that land. There'll be no sadness, all will be gladness when we shall join that happy band."
Oh, the happy band. Yeah, leave it to Darby to get us right there. But we know this was a prophetic vision by John. And a lot of the writers, the Greek, Roman writers, they like to take great pains to write very descriptive words and things to let other people know what was going on there. John describes how he was carried off by one of the seven angels, and he was in the Spirit. And so being in the Spirit, that probably means that it was during this vision that he had all this insight. And did you notice the mountain he was carried off? Weren't mountains pretty important in the Old Testament? Mount Sinai, didn't Moses receive the law from God? And also about how to have proper worship. On Mount Nebo, God showed a dying Moses the promised land. And let's see, Ezekiel described being taken up to a mountain where he saw a heavenly city and rebuilt temple. And then they showed John the holy city in verse 10 coming down from heaven. John saw the holy city of Jerusalem, but this city shared only its name with the terrestrial Jerusalem. That used to be confusing to me as a kid. You know, New Jerusalem, you're thinking it was the original one. But this is all brand new. And God will establish his new Jerusalem, and it'll be the place where he will dwell with his people, and it mentions his bride. God's always had a longing to be with us and for us to be with him. And in the Old Testament, to get in that holy place, I think this is right, didn't a certain priest have to do a bunch of cleansing and sacrifices? And then he'd go by the curtain in there. And I think they even tied the rope around him, where if he went in there and if something happened to him or he died, they could pull him out. He was the only one that could go in there and be in the presence of God. But in this New Jerusalem, we're going to be able to be in that presence. Let's see. Do you ever feel kind of small and insignificant when you see different things? And can you imagine, how John felt when he was having this vision about how insignificant he might be? The glory of God is unmistakable as John tells us, in the New Jerusalem. And it said you don't need a sun or moon. I believe I read that. There's going to be light there. That's hard. How do we figure? I can't understand that. I know it's going to be magnificent and wonderful, but in my mind, I think we need a light, to see. I need a lot of light so I can see. John refers to a very precious jewel to provide a parallel to the radiance of God's glory. God's glory, that's what we all want to participate in. We want to be a part of that. And there's a question here. As Christians, how can we enjoy our earthly city or residence and reflect God's presence in our lives? You want me to say that question again? As we go through our lives here on this earth, how can we reflect to others and let them see how much we enjoy being a part of God's family and how we look forward to that one day being with Him in heaven? Could it be the way we live our lives? The way we treat others? Yeah. And let me see how I'm doing on time. I wanted to bring this up. I've got several things I want to talk about, but I want to make sure I talk about this because it really struck me as I was reading through this. It talked about the gates, north, east, south, and west, and they never close. And then all these Christians, we all come together. There's no tears. There's no sorrow, no death, no pain. We're all happy, right? Buddy, this is what bothers me. Are you with me? So far, I know. I wouldn't jump in Jay's vehicle till you knew exactly where it was going, is what you're saying. Okay? It doesn't say that there's a Walnut Church entrance, that there's a Harding Church entrance, that there's a Abilene Church entrance, that there's a West Side, or, y'all have, you name the Ashdown, the whatever. It's for Christians. And we're all going to be there, be together, happy and enjoy and everything. But sometimes here on this earth, we get a little bit separated. We don't seem to get along the way we should at times. And we're not as patient and understanding. And, buddy, are you with me after I said it? Have you got my back on this? Am I crazy, or how do you get your arms around this? Take personalities out of it. Okay. Okay. We want to be scripturally correct. Is that what you're saying? Peace and maybe contentment. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. I like what you said. One God, we're all worshiping one God. And that's where it really got me thinking. I'm not going to call anybody out, but Mike's back there. Let's see, Bill's back there. Darby's there. we're in leadership positions and we meet and we talk about, and buddy, I didn't mean to leave you out, buddy. We talk about hard things. And then we say we want to be scripturally correct. Sometimes two of us can read the same thing and we see different meanings in it. And this really, I struggle with this. Oh, and Mark's here. Mark, you got my back on this? Okay, you probably need to. Yeah. Buddy, there's tough decisions at times that are made when the leadership and elders get together. And Bill, I think you'd agree. But I think, we use prayerful thought. We read the scriptures. But I was talking to Mark the other day, and I said, you know what I do? I look at, am I doing this because this is what Jay wants? Is this going to make Jay feel good, or is what I think we ought to do? Or is it for the good of the Walnut Church? Are we making that decision based on, the good of Walnut? Or is it good for the church universal? We all wear the tag members of Walnut, but aren't we all members of the Church of Christ, the bride of Christ? And then, but sometimes we get off on different lanes and we get out of somebody's lane they're comfortable with. But then you put this back to the New Jerusalem. We're all working and trying our best to be a part of that, and we'll all be together. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts on that? It's just that we need to work to get along better here so that we'll enjoy each other's fellowship in that New Jerusalem. Right? It's simple I can't think of a better answer than that. Yes, sir. Right. The universal church. Yeah. I believe from what I've studied and written in the book that when you enter the watery grave of baptism and come out, your sins are forgiven and your name is written in that book of life. And it's not written to any specific church. Yes, sir, did you have something over here? Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. No, good point. That's a great point. Yes, ma'am. Do what now? That's a great question, and I might have a little bit of an answer for it, I think. Okay. The foundation was built on the apostles. Did y'all catch that in the reading, the 12 apostles? And the gates, north, east, south, and west, were the tribes of Israel, which welcomes all the different. Weren't the tribes of Israel scattered out? I don't remember my geography. Don, weren't they scattered pretty much geographically? And that, to me, that's a welcome coming in. And I think, let's see. Okay, if you look at the dimensions, I think it was like 1,200 miles long if you do that, and 1,200 wide. And then the gate you talked about. Gates were a symbol of protecting cities. If they had a big gate, they were safe. But this gate is small in comparison to the other. So there could be some imagery or something there saying that we want everybody to know that they're welcome. They got the 4 different gates and then the smaller wall. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. But these gates never close. I see what you're saying, but God's radiance and His majesty and everything is there, and like, yes. Isn't it? No, but it's almost easier to imagine hell than it is heaven, isn't it? Okay. Did you hear that, buddy? Sir? You did? But to the point is, I can't even understand a city that's, 1,200 miles long, 1,200 miles wide, streets of gold, there's precious jewels everywhere. I don't know. No sun, no moon, just the radiance of God. Everybody's happy. And despite what heaven looks like, if it says, and I'm listening to y'all and I agree, we get our feelings hurt in this life, don't we? Emotionally, physically, we deal with things. We deal with sickness and death and disappointment. There's not going to be any of that in heaven from what I understand reading in the Bible. And that right there, Oh my gosh. Bill, does that sound pretty good to you? Our little brains and mind can only comprehend so much, and this is out. Hey, our time's about up. Thank y'all so much for your attendance. But this, I wanted to close with this, and this was the thought. You know what it doesn't talk about? It doesn't talk about a church. It doesn't talk about a temple or anything like that in the New Jerusalem. You know why? Because you're there with God in all of His radiance and glory. And wherever you're going, you're in His presence and get to worship Him and be a part of Him. So, I don't know. Maybe next time Bob gets sick, we'll come back and I'll finish this up a little further. I believe they're fixing to have a baptism as soon as we're dismissed. So let's have a closing prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank You for this opportunity to come and worship You today. We thank You for Christ, what He means to us. Thank You for this time that we can talk about and try to maybe just understand a little bit how great heaven is going to be, the New Jerusalem that's promised and talked about. Help us all strive to do our best, to be good servants of Yours, to be good examples, and as we often fail and fall short, please forgive us when we do that. We ask this